In the first module, we discussed about e-coaching, various ways to conduct one and how you and your clients can benefit from it. Let's now see how to plan your webinar. Planning is one of the crucial steps of the whole process. It will help you conduct your presentation efficiently and effectively without missing out on any important points. Planning will help you preempt the challenges that you might face midway through the webinar. For a start, it is necessary to decide as to what is that single most important point that you want to convey to the clients through your presentation. You may reiterate the purpose of the presentation to yourself during the planning stage. You need to sit and deliberately chalk out the plan, which will include certain critical issues, namely content of the presentation, schedule of the presentation, and resources that you will share with the clients. Once your planning is done, play it in your mind till you cover the webinar till the end. So how do you begin planning your presentation? The first point to consider is the subject matter that you want to convey, that is, the subject of your choice. But is the topic for the webinar interesting? This can be known by doing a little research. You can check out the market trends and then decide what type of content you would like for your webinar. You may be good in culinary skills or brand management, tourism or interior designing. A webinar can be prepared on anything you have knowledge in. The question is how passionate you are about sharing it with people who are willing to learn and explore. This needs to be identified, and then the next steps will follow much more smoothly, setting the right pace. Your enthusiasm will invariably reflect in your presentation in front of the clients, making your webinar more compelling. The content of the presentation needs to be with a purpose in mind. Your purpose will determine the way the presentation flows. Make sure your presentation starts with a brief introduction on the subject. It should be as short as possible. For instance, if you are making a presentation on organizational development, then the logical way to start would be to first define the concept of organizational development. You may then move on to explaining the types of organizational development interventions that are required to be taken in an organization. You must try and include some basic terminologies. That depends entirely on the capacity of your clients. What this means is you must gauge the level of knowledge that your clients have in the subject. If you don't know this aspect of your clients, forward a questionnaire before your webinar is scheduled to begin. The answers to this questionnaire will clearly tell you what your clients would like to know more about. You can then plan the content accordingly. Now you know what your clients are interested to know about. How do you start designing your presentation in view of this? This is an important question that you need to answer. Also, how are you going to start in a way that catches everyone's attention from the very beginning? You need to sit and think about this aspect deeply. The beginning should be something that is able to stir your clients from inside. Think of a beginning with a quote or an audio-visual slide which tells a humorous story, and then move on to apprise them of the benefits of the webinar. Think of this as a great experience for the participants. You can start off with the basics only if your clients are completely unaware of the subject. Ask yourself, do I understand what is important to them? This would require an understanding of the background of your clients. The answer to the questionnaire should help you out here. This will give you a fair idea of the level of awareness of your clients. There may be instances where your clients are experienced professionals and aware of the basic concept. In that case, do not dwell too much on the basics. Simply include them in your introduction of the subject. If you start discussing something which they already know, then you will not only waste their time on all the unimportant and relevant points, but also end up losing your credibility. It is very important to relate the concepts mentioned in the introduction. Imagine yourself sitting and listening to the webinar when you review the content. How does it sound to you? Think like your client. Is it comprehensive enough? If not, what is it that you can improve or modify to make better? Adding instances which your client can relate to can be one point to consider. Simply filling your presentation with information is not enough. You must elaborate on each point by giving relevant examples to make them easy to understand. Examples prove to be really impactful when they are relatable. Think of a scenario where the points are not in sequence. How will this impact the audience? Won't they get confused? Well, yes, sure they will. So, make sure that the important points are positioned in a logical manner, so that the next point builds up on the previous one. This would help you convey your core message effectively. At the same time, it will help your clients grasp the main points. The points that should be organized in a manner that allows you to elaborate and give emphasis on the most important thought or idea. Each small point should invariably lead to the focus of the presentation. Just as you begin, continue with the same tempo. The conclusion of the presentation should also be made interesting, that it provides the punch to make the final impact on the audience. If in a feedback the clients remember the points you made, then you can rest assured that your webinar has been impactful. Wouldn't it be good if we can rewind ourselves, modify our words, and play with ourselves again? Well, since this is not going to happen, you might as well consider doing things right the first time. If your preparation hasn't been thorough, then this should not be a problem. Time is something which is not in our control. So let's now see how we can plan the webinar according to the available time. It is not the time that will adjust to your presentation, but it is the presentation that needs to be planned. Make sure you schedule it in such a manner that you are able to cover all the relevant points in the given time. Now that you have decided what points you are going to cover, the next step is to assign time in minutes to each point. Just try to think which point should come first and which one should follow. You can rate the points from the most important point to the least important and assign them accordingly. Some points may warrant examples while others may not. You can keep examples ready for a lot of subtopics which are covered in your presentation. This will come in very handy when you are falling short of time. For instance, if someone does not understand a concept when you explained it, and you know that time is running out, then a simple example will help you in making your client understand quickly. So you think only actors require rehearsals? Well, think again. Rehearsal or practice, in other words, should be done only because you don't want to fall short of your own potential and the audience's expectations. It is a good idea to rehearse once or twice after the content of your presentation is ready. This should be done with a watch kept close by so that you can keep track of the time and change things where you think you are taking more time than required. At the same time, the presentation should not be completed before the scheduled time. If this happens, then it will give your clients the idea that there is no value addition being done to your presentation. The clients may actually end up losing interest in it altogether. How is your thought process? Are some preconceived ideas on your mind about the previous set of clients? This is another checkpoint for you. Just because it took longer for the previous batch to understand a point from your presentation doesn't mean this batch is also going to take the same amount of time. It is necessary to think afresh because these clients are new and different. Rely on what the clients have shared with you about their backgrounds rather than allowing your judgments about them to prevail. The last thing you need to keep in mind about time is that the duration of your webinar should not be too long or too short. It is not necessary to cover everything about the subject in one presentation. Imagine yourself being subjected to a presentation which has been rushed, and there is nothing that you would have been able to absorb. You are definitely not likely to come back to a presentation like that. Instead, you can divide it into 2 webinars if need be. This is because the attention span of a person is limited, and if the person goes on for too long, then your clients are likely to lose interest. You should be able to strike a balance between the content being shared and the time taken to share it. At the very beginning of the webinar, it is important to make each person feel that their presence is important to you. If you start the presentation with this thought in mind, then making the session interactive will be an easy job. If you're simply going to rattle on the topics one by one, then it will not register in the minds of your clients. By the end of it, they will not have learned what they had in mind. Instead, they will be frustrated. Whereas if you encourage their participation, they will feel valued and will want to contribute more. In the first 15 minutes, you will be able to recognize as to what has kept the interest of your clients till now. Use an appropriate strategy in accordance to keep their interest. You can include small, easy exercises to emphasize on points included in your presentation, or have the clients answer a questionnaire. You can ask them questions so that they start thinking on the subject deeply. If you think that the group is capable of answering difficult questions, you can ask such questions. Do not ignore anyone's questions or inputs. Appreciate the person who gives a good input or asks a good question. This will definitely help them know that their input matters. Let's consider a situation where your presentation is likely to overshoot the specified time. You can end by saying that the next topic will be covered in the next session. This is a more dignified way of ending the presentation rather than spoiling it by trying to stuff everything in the presentation just because the clients asked too many questions or because you lost track of time. Won't you feel good if you were asked about your views on the session you attended? Sure you will. So don't wait. Use the software to take a feedback of the clients and the extent to which they have benefited from it. The last 5 minutes may also be kept for a quick review of the topics discussed in the session. Their answers will indicate whether you have done any value addition or just about repeating things that the clients already knew. The resources you choose for your webinar depends on whether you are starting off or already established in this business. In case you don't have a website of your own, you can explore your options on a number of online conference websites. This will automatically have you registered on the website and make the invitation to your potential clients. However, in case you have a website, getting webinar software would be a good idea. Let's see how these options work. In case you decided to register with a website offering scheduling and planning services for the webinar, the clients will use the registration forms to apply for your webinar. This will be followed by automated reminders to the clients as the date of the webinar approaches. If you are completely new to it, then you can have a mock setup practice before actually registering to the website. Once this is done, go ahead and practice your presentation using the website before you deliver it for your clients. If you do not feel confident with the virtual setup immediately, you can request someone from your family or friends to act like a client and have the webinar presented to him or her. You can then ask them to give you genuine feedback on whether you are going too slow or too fast, whether you are audible, and so on. If you have a trial like this, it will be easy to identify if there are any technical glitches that need to be checked before your webinar starts. There is a facility which can be utilized to know your audience in terms of who applied first and who applied later. This will be an indicator towards their interest level. As you proceed, you will learn the way the control panel is used to interact with your clients. Similarly, each client will have the freedom to use their mic and speakers to respond to what you are presenting. Your clients will also be able to ask questions and raise their hands if they want to ask a question or share their thoughts on the point being discussed. These websites allow you to have online feedback sessions. Software is also a great option to organize and manage your webinar. The advantage here is that everything is in your control. Now let's further explore the option which the software has in order to keep your clients engaged in the topic. As mentioned earlier, the feedback taken will reveal the success of your webinar as well as the points of improvement. Once your webinar is over, you sure will be interested in knowing how the client's responses look like. Based on the responses of the clients, reports can be generated. These reports will help you to have a clear picture on the way the webinar went. Further on, you can send follow-up mails to them to know the schedule and various other details related to the next session. You can also schedule the time and date for the automatic follow-up mails to be sent to the clients. These websites will not only help you organize your webinar by lending you the resources, but also equipped to reach out to as many people as you wish to include in your webinar. Online delivery also helps you cut down costs. A limited period may be offered by the website for using these resources, and further, you can buy a plan based on your requirement.